Welcome, Alex Doman, to our podcast. It's a real pleasure to have you here. We've talked, studied what you've done. I thought, obviously, you've led a very impactful life. Your whole family has. And I think you have an important message to share, not only with our audience and the autism community, but in technology. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into this field? And why pursue it to such the vigor that you have, devoting all your life to improving kind of neurodiverse people?
Shahriar, thank you so much for having me, and really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you again and to your audience. I've been fortunate to grow up in the field of child development, brain rehabilitation, and neurotechnology. My family are pioneers in brain injury rehabilitation, the neurodevelopmental approach to treating children on the autism spectrum and across the neurodiverse community, starting back in the 1940s. So 3 generations now of a family just in love with the idea that the brain is plastic and that we can create opportunities for everyone on our planet to live to their fullest potential if we, give them the chance to do so. So it's the idea of each of us are unique individuals. We each have our different puzzle pieces that put us together to make us a whole developed person that can reach that potential. And we've just always been on the quest to develop techniques and make discoveries to help people to do so. So I was born into it, and fortunately loved what my family was doing. And in particular, what really has driven me is to see the change, particularly in children, that professionals may have said don't have tremendous potential based on their historical experience, maybe of what is a child with autism, right? What is expected of a child on the autism spectrum. And as a family, we've worked with thousands of children on the spectrum over these decades. So we know what the potential is when they're afforded the right opportunities, and it's unlimited. So the sky's the limit in terms of what can happen for our kids. And as we approach each child we serve, that's how we look at them.
Yeah.
There's a blank canvas with every opportunity before them. We just have to figure out what are the right opportunities for them to achieve their goals or their family for them.
Yeah. I mean, like they say, you met one kid with autism, you met one kid with autism. And I think as a special needs parent, I've always looked at the limitations that the institutions and structures, whether it's insurance or the educational system or just the society, puts around our kids, as you have to fit in this box. And if you can't fill that puzzle by age 3 or 4, then you're a lost cause. You're just going to be relegated. I've heard other parents refer to it as warehousing our kids. And what you're talking about, obviously, is a new approach, not necessarily a new approach. Music and the elasticity of brain has always been discussed, but we're applying it to special needs kids and helping them reach their full potential. Whatever their best can be, not what we think their best is, but whatever their best can be. So tell us about your company and how music plays into it and how you apply it to these kids and what kind of improvement you've seen in people's lives.
Yeah, thank you. So Advanced Brain Technologies is a company I founded in 1998 as an outgrowth of my father's work at the National Association for Child Development. And our focus at Advanced Brain is to develop really leading edge neurotechnologies that are focused on using sound and music to impact the brain in a positive way. So what people are most familiar with at ABT is a program called the Listening Program, which is a method of music listening therapy in which a child or an adult, this is for all ages, from as young as we can put on a pair of headphones, through the lifespan, that you'll wear a pair of specialized headphones for 15 minutes a day, 1 or 2 times, 5 days a week. You'll go through a systematic protocol of listening to original recordings of incredibly beautiful classical music that has been arranged, recorded, and engineered to impact the brain through a developmental process, so that different sound frequencies, different pieces of music impact the brain centers that are responsible for motor organization, for orientation in space and time, for balance and movement. Brain areas responsible for receiving and expressing language and communication and focus and attention, and the brain areas that manage thinking and decision making and organizational skills, creativity. So we're able to systematically, from the bottom up, the same way the brain develops from birth to adulthood, to stimulate different brain regions with music and sound that's incredibly pleasant and enjoyable to listen to, and map the brain so it can process the full spectrum of sound available in our world, but in such a way that feels safe and comfortable, so that we can get the information we need from our world to understand it from an acoustic standpoint, and for the brain to be able to process and respond to it appropriately. So often in our neurodiverse community that we have many individuals that have sensory sensitivities. When different senses, be it touch, vision, taste, smell, sound, are stimulated, the brain doesn't always react in a normalized fashion. It may be under-responsive to that input, not even recognize it, or hyper-responsive to that input and overreact to it. And when we have that imbalance in an individual, that makes life often very difficult and very uncomfortable, because we don't know what's coming and when it's coming. So often for these individuals, they might be in a state of fight or flight response or hypervigilance. So their autonomic system is on high alert in survival mode, with the perception that the brain and the individual is in danger. And what we want to do is help calm the autonomic nervous system, help it go into parasympathetic response to find homeostatic balance, so that that response to the world is more quote unquote normalized, that the brain does what it should in a reaction to what's happening in the environment. And the right music presented in the right way can do that. And that's what the listening program is designed to do. And when I mentioned that headphones are worn, Shahriar, is that those headphones are very special. When we're doing the kind of best application of the listening program method, the headphones that we've developed do multisensory stimulation. So in addition to hearing beautiful sound through the ears, you're feeling the vibration of the sound through a vibrational bone conductor. And what that bone conductor does is it impacts the vagal response in the system, helps improve what we call vagal tone, which is what is key to regulating the autonomic nervous system. And ultimately what that means is it helps us to feel safe. It helps us to feel grounded. It helps us to feel connected. When we're safe, grounded, and connected, we can make eye contact. We can process information coming in. We can express ourselves. We can learn. We can be ready for therapy, whatever that therapy is that we're engaging in, and more fully participate in life.
Now, I think everyone understands the healing power of music, but has this particular application been well studied, and have the results been obviously something that is actionable, that parents can feel, if I try this? Because I talk to a lot of parents that they feel ABA is not working. I've talked to a lot of doctors that feel ABA is not working, maybe 15, 20%. Maybe it works for some kids that are generally mild, but a lot of our kids are fairly severe. They have very tough challenges, audio processing issues, delays. What has objective studies shown on this particular effort?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's really important to know that not every modality works for every individual, or it may not work in the way that we expect it to or need it to at that moment in time. So I think that that's really important. And the modalities that we're using with our children may be appropriate one time, but not another, and are interdependent on the other things that we're doing. So I'll just start there. We've been very fortunate that we've had over 1 million people use the listening program since 1998. We've trained thousands of practitioners around the world as certified providers of this program that have used this in top hospitals, autism treatment centers, schools, Veterans administration hospitals, VA hospitals for veterans with PTSD, people with symptoms of a range of things, depression and autism and ADHD, and you name it. And, these aren't claims that these treat those diseases, but it has been helpful for individuals that have the symptoms across the spectrum of things that we see. We've had over 20 independent research studies done on the listening program across populations, both children and adults. And most of the research has actually been published around autism and the impact and the theory behind how the listening program helps individuals with autism. So what we would say to a parent is there is a high likelihood that your child will have a moderate response to the intervention. Okay. And to say anything more than that would be setting an expectation too high. To see that we see incredible responses at times, absolutely. But we want to know that we have a moderate impact, that's a measurable impact. So that if we're doing an ATEC, an autism treatment evaluation checklist that looks at symptoms of autism, we frequently see 50% reductions in symptoms pre and post listening program intervention. So that can mean that a child that was diagnosed as severely autistic may be mildly autistic post-intervention. Sometimes kids that no longer have a diagnosis in response to the interventions that they're doing. So it's a wide range of results, but generally we see results and that they're positive. And I think the proof really comes in the longevity of use of the program. So we have families that have continued to use this intervention with their children from childhood into adulthood, meaning they started with a listening program 20 years ago, and it is still part of that individual's life today because it's become a daily lifestyle. It's become a tool in their life, just like exercise or yoga or meditation or breathing techniques that make them feel and do better when they do it. And when they're away from it, they don't quite feel as good. Yeah. So, we use the programs for ourselves in that same regard. What I find is when we're consistently doing our listening, we have the opportunity to be the best version of ourselves.
Yeah. I think anybody can use 15 minutes of classical music a day and it may improve. And I think that's one thing people don't realize, sometimes whatever support you're giving, our kids, they're human beings. They have the same, they might be in there, they might be locked up in there, but if they feel joy, that means you are able to feel it. So if you feel the same joy, they can feel the same joy. They just can't tell you, or they can, and you can't always measure, compare yourself to obviously your child. But I think that's always, I think you mentioned, this is another form of intervention. I think that's really a key because a lot of parents that I talk to and a lot of technology companies that I talk to, they feel like they're offering a supplement to the existing tried and true government sponsored, insured ABA program. And when when you have a kid, I always say there's no manual to when you have a kid. When you have a special needs kid, definitely no manual. There's no menu comes with the kid that says, you know what, I'll take 10% of ABA, 20% of this, 10% of that. I'll see which one works. And technology supplements X and behavioral therapy. So in the greater scheme of things, do you see parents trying several different interventions? This is one of them, and are there others that they use it, or have they just subscribed to this and you feel they continue on, as you say, longevity?
I think you bring up an important point. First of all, the listening program is complementary to whatever else the family may be doing. And it's a low impact on their life, meaning it's 15 to 30 minutes a day. And it is 15 to 30 minutes. The child can engage in an activity they enjoy quietly with headphones on. They can do art. They can play with fidgets. There's all sorts of activities they can do during their session. And there's no expectation of an output. We're not asking the child to perform. Yeah. We're not asking them to do a task and to reward them for the task. The listening program is the reward. So often this becomes the carrot with other therapies to do listening. So generally, our experience is this: children that are doing ABA therapy or Sunrise or other behavioral approaches will find that those therapies work better in combination with a listening program.
Mhm.
Our occupational therapists, our speech language pathologists that are working with children prescribe the listening program in conjunction with their OT and their speech services.
Mhm.
So these fit together. We work with integrative medicine physicians. In fact, our clinical director, Dr. Alan Lewis, who practices integrative medicine, has a very sensitive caseload of children, not only on the autism spectrum, but with autoimmune disorders, PANS and PANDAS, which often is comorbid with autism spectrum disorders, now uses the listening program with every patient and finds that his treatment outcomes are accelerated and improved with listening therapy added as opposed to without. So he and his staff use it as well. So, this is something that can stand alone, but standing alone is not going to be enough to reach all your goals for your child, but it's going to accelerate what you're doing, and it's going to complement and take them in different areas that their other interventions may not. So we really see it can work beautifully alone, but wouldn't be the only piece, and can support everything else that we're doing and enhance what else we're doing.
Wow. And the music arrangement, how is that, I want to say, scientifically selected? So one arrangement works with one kid, another arrangement with another kid, and how is that decided?
Yeah, so we'll help. The research that comes from this is a field of study called psychoacoustics. So it's a field of psychology that studies the human brain's response to sound of music, right? It's the same technology or science that's used to understand how to create hearing aids or MP3 technology or a cochlear implant. So we understand that certain components or features of sound affect the brain in a different way. The volume of the sound, the frequency spectrum, right? High tone, low tone, the pitches of the sound, the rhythm of the sound, the temporal timing, the order of the sounds, and you have millions of possible combinations with all of these pieces. So there was a pioneer in the field that was a French ear, nose, and throat physician named Alfred Tomatis that pioneered the use of technology with music to train different patterns in the brain, if you will, to retrain the brain acoustically. So we worked from the foundation of having had many clients do Tomatis method and do prior methods, AIT with Dr. Berard, Simonis sound therapy, and others, coupled that with our experience with neurodevelopmental work and created a new model of acoustic training with listening therapy. So we brought in composers, music arrangers, professional musicians working with therapists to develop new approaches toward creating this music. So we wouldn't pick a particular composition for you. What we would do is say from 4 primary protocols of the listening program, Spectrum, Achieve, Level 1, or In Time, that are a framework, right? Not individual compositions, but a framework. Each framework is made up of dozens of different 15-minute music pieces that go through a particular sequence in that 15-minute time called an ABC modular design. There's a warm-up when you start your session. There's a more intensive training phase toward the center and a cool down at the end to help with self-regulation for the child or the adult that's doing the listening. So we always are going through a progression of warming up, cooling, really challenging the brain and cooling the brain back down, just like physical exercise, so that we can always meet a listener where they're at during their session. And each session is preparation for the next one. So they build on each other developmentally in a progression. So you'll listen daily to Mozart, to Haydn, to Vivaldi, Danzig, different compositions with strings and with woodwinds and different arrangements with different emphasis on different frequency bands. So we start with the full spectrum of all of the music all the sound frequencies that influence the brain. Then we focus on low frequencies, then the middle frequencies, then the high frequencies. So we systematically train different brain regions over time so that with one individual, we'll go through this progressive program and fill in the pieces that they need. So it's about starting and picking the right protocol for them that's going to match those needs across the frequencies, and then modifying it as we need to over the course of their program.
Wow. And would that program be different for each age? Like somebody comes to you at 4 or 6 or 10, do they get different music? Then
we look at different profiles, right? So we're going to present, so of the 4 core programs, we could have anyone do any of those programs and have a successful outcome. It's about dialing in kind of the right program for them at that moment, then a succession of those programs over time, as opposed to having to fine tune individual music pieces. We really want families to have something that's easy. Yeah. So literally what they would get is they'll get an iPod, right, with a playlist on it, and they'll say, play track 1 today, track 2 tomorrow, track 3, track 4. If they use our online service, which is a subscription platform, the listening program online, they'll do a baseline assessment in the system. It'll assign a program, or their provider will choose a program. Then each time they show up to listen, they just hit a play button. And whatever music that child's supposed to receive and benefit from will automatically play for them that day.
Wow.
So it's going to be easy. The parents don't have to think about it. It's just press play on that track today.
I like that because being a special needs parent, being a special needs parent, as you know, that we talked about, is difficult enough. There's so much on our plate. Just on the autism platform, we talk about legal issues, insurance, and safety issues, and so much else. And when you add to it the technology element of, how do we, monitors and cameras and all the devices they have, it's just overwhelming. And we're still at the house. We haven't gone out of the house yet. We're still trying to manage our kids, especially this past year of the pandemic. So we talked a little bit about the results, but would parents make their own judgment if it's working? Or would your group or the provider say, you know what, this is working, or we're gonna change something? Or how would you check it, benchmark it every few months?
So we have, there are specific tools developed for the listening program for baseline and progress measurement in different areas. So there are online tools, there are paper-based tools, and there are interview processes that are done to establish where are we today and what are our goals and how are we doing in moving toward our goals. Yeah. So those measures are all actually built into the method in and of itself. Then depending on the background of the practitioner, they may use other tools, right? So some medical doctors might test heart rate variability to look at autonomic balance in the individual. An occupational therapist may do different sensory integration standardized testing. ABA therapists are going to actually look at their daily scores with ABA to look at the impact of the listening program when it's been brought in. So different standardized tests are used based on the background of the practitioner that's working with that individual, but the method has its own tools built within it itself.
Right. So if someone wants to get to you or, begin to participate in this program, where would they go? How would they start? Yeah. And let me just ask, another typical question. Doesn't sound like an insurance cover type thing. It's something that parents can financially afford.
Yeah. So one thing we've always focused on is making things accessible. Incredibly important to us. So a family can get started, for as little as a $34.95 a month monthly subscription for the online service and a pair of headphones, right? That's the starting point. Then there are home systems that, could, be up to a couple of $1,000s with months of coaching support. So there's a range to meet families where they're at, wherever their need is today. And even with the listening systems, a HSA program will cover it. So if they have an HSA plan, They could use their HSA funds to pay for the programs. And insurance generally doesn't cover, but sometimes we'll see things like Medicare waivers or other, spot insurance reimbursements, but generally expect private pay. Out of pocket. Sometimes schools will provide these services under a child's IEP. So there are different grants and programs available. So, families learn about the listening program at advancedbrain.com. So there's a D in that, advancedbrain.com. They can go to the listening program. They can go complete a free brain scale to see the degree of benefit the listening program may have for their child. On a quick 5-minute scale, 10-minute scale, they're going to get some good information. Then we've got a team of consultants that do free consults for families to talk to them, see if the listening program's the right fit. If they agree they do, we'll then match them up with a coach provider somewhere in the country or outside of the US. We work in over 40 countries that's going to support the family on their journey with a listening program.
Wow, I think you hit the nail on the head. An IEP conversation with your educational system, with the school. And as a parent, you have every right to bring up the different types of therapies you want the team to consider. And they always impress on us. It's a team effort. Okay, all right, let's test that team. As a parent, I want X because Y hasn't been working. And you can see that because ABA, as you know, lives on data and charts and graphs and stuff. And I would like to try something new, whether it's a $34.95 plan or a little bit more. I would like to integrate this into my child's learning. So parents have that right to bring that up, and the school systems and folks can consider it. And that's one way to kind of supplement the impact.
We have had hundreds of schools offer the listening program to students. So, including some of our largest concentrations have been in San Diego County.
Wow. Well, perfect. Not because I'm in San Diego County, but the fact that schools have subscribed to it, instant precedent. So it's not like we're bringing something new to the school that they've never done before. It's been tried and tested for a very long time, and schools have done it. So it's really just a matter of parents being informed enough to bring it up.
That's right.
And obviously they could subscribe to you directly, but in all fact, I think it makes sense to integrate it into their overall learning and support program through the IEP. So, technology and autism coming together in really exactly what technology should be doing, what science and data and research should be doing, coming up with solutions to help behavioral challenges, neurodevelopmental issues, and kind of you sit at the intersection of both of these fields, which is amazing. So I'm very grateful for your time. I'm very grateful for your family's work, generations of your family investing time and energy and your life focusing on improving the lives of people around you, which is just tremendous. We're going to keep in touch. I'm going to check in with you once in a while as things develop, as new technologies or new programs come up, and make sure our audience on both sides, on the technology and on the autism platform, are aware of what you're doing. So thank you, Alex. All of your information will be on the post underneath the video, and hopefully as feedback comes in, I'll share it with you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. This was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.